in eliminating the reigning world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. The National League representative, the Atlanta Braves, will now face the American League representative, the Houston Astros. In baseball's biggest stage, the 2021 World Series, and this will be the 117th time the Fall Classic will have taken place. This will also mark the 21st season in a row without a repeat World Series champion. The last team to repeat, of course, was the New York Yankees when they won 3 straight from 98 to 2000. This will be the 6th playoff matchup between the Braves and the Astros, with Atlanta holding a 3-2 lead all time between the two clubs. However, this will be the first matchup since Houston migrated to the American League in 2013, and the very first time they faced each other in a best-of-7 series. The Braves and the Astros did not face each other in 2021 during the regular season and haven't since 2017 when the Astros won the regular season series 4-0. From the Dodgers' playoff collapse after winning 106 games this season to Dusty Baker's 50-plus years, deep ties to his opponent on baseball's biggest stage, to Houston's long shot at redemption since Trashcan Gate. This series has the potential to be very explosive. Let's get into it. Jorge Martín, as usual, our go-to MLB guru and NFL fantasy football guru. This is my guy right here. So a lot has been going on. We're going to get right to it. MLB. I think you guys are going to be a little surprised that even though we probably have, stiff upper lip right now, we're both kind of pissed. Pissed from a fan's perspective. Just from a fan's perspective, because heartbroken is, I guess, the best way to put it. But I don't want to seem too, soft. But it's the fan perspective of our Dodgers. But we can be objective. Jorge's been a journalist for over 35 years. To me, he's one of the best in the business. I've been a super duper fan for all my life, as Jorge has been as well. And we want to analyze some things that took place in the National League Championship Series as well as the American League. Not so much the series themselves, but moving forward, what we think is going to happen in the World Series. A little bit before we get to that, and then I'm going to bring Jorge in because that's the whole reason for this particular episode. Storylines, as Jorge and I mentioned in other episodes, we believe they drive everything. Storylines are the key to everything, not just in life, but in what drives in sports. I think we get a little too hyped about storylines in sports, but sometimes it's warranted. A lot of times it's not. In this particular case, a couple of things have happened. My dad would always get, just fired up when he's watching TV, Lakers and Dodgers in particular, and we're playing against a team that's creaming us by a particular player that specifically originally played for the Dodgers or the Lakers, but they're on the opposing team and killing us now. The same can be said now for Jock Peterson. Jocktober. It's now being called Jocktober. The pearls and all. This guy came at the Dodgers. I think he was, even though he may not be the stat guy, like Acuna, right? And all these other guys. Some of the guys on the Braves that came through. Bottom line is, this guy, to me, I think with all this voodoo stuff with the pearls and all this other stuff, this is how we're going to beat the Dodgers. And the Braves made it happen. In addition to the fact that we kind of made them look really bad. The Dodgers made them look really bad last year when the Dodgers came back from down 3-1 and beat them. So I wanted to bring Jorge in to discuss a little bit about the Dodgers win, and then we'll talk a little bit about how Houston won and the storylines there, and then about some other things I have on the docket. Have at it, my man. What do you think?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. This is I always love hanging out with you. This feels like we're hanging out.
Oh, we're just chilling. Yeah.
When it comes to first off, the Dodgers and the Braves series, it was for the Dodgers. I was worried that playing a crazy wild card game and then playing a 5-game series that was really, really so close, and it came down to the 9th inning of the last game. Yeah. It was something that you looked at it and it's just like, I thought, okay, I hope they got enough left in the tank. And then you started to see these little things kind of crop up. Scherzer wasn't, his arm was still a little dead. Buehler's going on short rest. Julio Urias is getting used out of the bullpen. And really the thing is, one of the greatest strength of the Dodgers this year, I felt, it wasn't that offense. I mean, there were definitely some players who had standout years, but it was that pitching staff, specifically the starting and rotation. But you started to get these signs that maybe this wasn't the year. The Friday of the last weekend of the season, Kershaw got hurt, and it was clear that he was going to be out for the entire playoffs. Max Muncy got hurt on the very last game of the season, and then guys started dropping. Justin Turner, Joe Kelly. I mean, just guys are getting knocked out left and right. Scherzer got ruled out, and I think the Dodgers just ran out of bullets. And I think one of the things that may have hurt them a little bit is, playing the normal season this year after last year playing a 60-game season. It's especially when it comes to pitching. Pitchers are like thoroughbreds. You train them for specific races, for specific lengths, and you shorten it, and then you lengthen it. You could get some breakdowns, and that's why I think a little bit started to show there at the end. And I think the World Series is going to be a little bit of a battle of attrition too, because I think it's whoever kind of outlasts the other one. But this series, I mean, you looked at them. I mean, they got so many big hits. Eddie Rosario turned himself into an October star. He made himself a lot of money. He's going to be a free agent this year. He was a free. I mean, that's the thing. To me, the Braves are an incredible story, because the fact that they lost Ronald Acuna, who for my money is one of the top 3 best players of the game. Along with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. And,
wow.
He's probably the only guy who can do 40-40. And just an extraordinary player. You lose him to a torn ACL, out for the season in the middle of the year. I thought they were dead. And then Marcell Ozuna got hit with a domestic violence arrest. And I mean, you just saw guys kind of dropping off, but then they went and they picked up Eddie Rosario. They picked up Adam Duvall to play center field. He's an underrated power hitter. They picked up Jock Peterson, whom I've known since 2012 when I went to go visit him and Yasiel Puig when they were playing at Rancho Cucamonga in Single A. And so I just drove up there on a Dodger off day just to essentially to interview Yasiel Puig, but Peterson was having a great season, and we could talk about that. But Peterson is an incredibly clutch player. He's kind of like, I always knew him kind of like as a little bit of, I don't want to call him goofy, but it was just one of those things. Like he didn't take himself so seriously. And I think that made him a little bit, his heartbeat just a little bit calmer.
That helps a lot at that level.
Yeah, during those crazy situations. And you go back 2017, he had gotten sent down to the minors during that season. Now, this is a guy who was rookie of the year, and he got sent to the minors a few years after winning rookie of the year. And he comes back up, and he hit a few home runs during the World Series that year. Almost helped that. He would have been in the conversation for MVP had the Dodgers won that year. But you look at but he's a guy who he's swinging for the fences all the time, but he's come up huge so often. You look at him, but I mean, again, this is a team that is really underrated. They've got some good starting pitchers. Max Fried, Valley Boy, went to Harvard Westlake. Reggie Smith, former Dodger great, was his youth hitting coach through his teenage years, and he mentioned that he still considers Reggie a friend. So though he doesn't have that big, remember that I remember that. Held the bat way up high. You got him, you got Max Fried, you got Max Fried, you got Charlie Morton, you got Ian Anderson. 3 really good starters, and they've got a decent bullpen. Both teams don't have a great bullpen, but they have a decent bullpen. But they have they have some some budding stars on their team. Ozzie Albies and Austin Riley are up and coming stars. Dansby Swanson, their shortstop, is an underrated player. Does everything right.
I thought he was great.
Yeah, he's great. He's a wonderful fielder. He's a good hitter. He's he's got enough power. He doesn't strike out a lot. I mean, he puts the ball in play. He's a good average hitter. And you got Freddie Freeman, who all he was the 2020 MVP, and just still one of the best and one of the best first basemen in baseball, and just a wonderful
another SoCal boy.
Yes, another Orange County kid.
Orange County, yeah.
So you look at those guys, and you've got a good representative from the National League. You could see why they outlasted the Dodgers. They didn't have to go to such great lengths to beat the Brewers, so they were a little more rested coming into this series. But again, it's a good solid team. I would have loved the Dodgers to be there, but I honestly don't know if they would have had much left in the tank going into this one.
Right. This was incredible. 106. We had 106 wins. The Dodgers had 106 wins. I keep saying we. I have to back off of the 106 wins. I wouldn't say the season was a total disappointment because you and I discuss often in football how brutal the game is, the war of attrition, basically. It's no different just because it's not so much a collision sport or even a physical contact sport like basketball. It's still an incredible toll taken on the bodies of these professional athletes, even at that level. And so 162 games. Jorge and I used to speak about this when we were kids. That's a lot of games if you think about it. We love it as fans because there's always content. Always content you can discuss, you can dissect. So much information that you can get from 162 games and now the playoffs. And which is a little aside. It's like 162 games. Why not just make all 3 playoff rounds 7-game series? What difference does it make at this point? 1 or 2 extra games here and there. Who cares? Let them have extra days off in between.
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens next year because more playoff games means more money.
Absolutely.
More money for TV.
And we're gonna at the end of this, we're gonna do a few things, Jorge. At the end of this World Series, Jorge and I will definitely do a season wrap up on everything MLB, what's coming up in the CBA with MLB. A lot of interesting things on the table, plus some bigger issues that are happening, not just specific within the league, but how is the league going to survive moving forward? Because football is on a trajectory, the NFL in particular, to even though there's all the CT and all this stuff going on, it looks as though it's definitely experiencing an uptick. Basketball has some interesting things going on as well that I think is going to cause another uptick in that side. So baseball has to do something, and we'll definitely discuss that another time. But for today, interesting storyline. The tie-ins, the Braves and the Houston Astros. Houston Astros, Jorge and I know well, not just because of Trashcan Gate and how the Dodgers were on the negative side of that. That's definitely I think that's going to play big, obviously, because at the very beginning of this, when I brought up how Jock Peterson, the reason why I brought up Jock Peterson is because I believe, and it's always been strange to me in my life, that LA, for whatever reason, Los Angeles baseball, football, basketball teams, we get the worst of it. And this is not a complaint. This is not crying. This is not anything. It's just a fact that the only teams, plural, from a specific city in the country where there is an actual negative chant against them are the teams from LA. Beat LA. There's the Yankees by far, it's undeniable, in the history of Major League Baseball, are the dominant franchise of Major League Baseball, period. They won more championships than any other. I know some of them were decades ago, but they are the gem of baseball if you were to look at it objectively. No one ever says, beat New York, beat New York. And the weird part about do you know how that chant came about?
Oh, absolutely.
The beat LA chant.
Just Boston Garden.
Exact. Boston Garden losing against the Philadelphia 76ers. And they hated the 76ers, but they, for some reason, hated the Lakers even more. And I don't know if it's always just about the Lakers, because now Sacramento Kings took up the chant, Portland Trailblazers took up the chant, everywhere the Dodgers, the Lakers, and I don't know if the Rams are going to get it. I think eventually they will if they win a couple of Super Bowls. But I don't know if the Kings get it either. I've never heard it if the Kings receive it, but definitely the Dodgers and the Lakers, wherever they go. They can be at Milwaukee on a Wednesday night in June and the fans will drum up beat LA. The Yankees, again, the most dominant baseball franchise in history, maybe not right now, but in history, they don't even have that. And this isn't a new thing. This came out in the 80s, the mid 80s, so almost 40 years ago. And so I look at Jock Peterson. What else do people need to fire themselves up to beat any of the LA teams? People are going to come hard at the Dodgers, at the Lakers, every single time. And again, not crying, but it's just a fact. So we love Dusty Baker. He's an old school Dodger legend to us, to me, and I know Jorge feels the same way. The tie-in right now for Baker, and this is why I'm okay with refreshing my thoughts on the Houston Astros at this time, even with Trashcan Gate years ago, is because the people that were primarily involved with that are no longer with the organization. Not as far as the players are concerned, obviously, but we're talking about the executives, and they're no longer, I heard they're no longer with the Houston Astros, number one. Number two, Dusty Baker's an old school Dodger. Wish for his success always. He's there. But number three, little tie-in, and you're Mr. History, so I know you're going to know this, but I want you to expound on this and that. I don't know how many people know Dusty Baker. When he came into Major League Baseball, he was drafted by the Atlanta Braves in 1976. When he was drafted, who was the main guy that brought him on? Hammer and Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron even called Dusty Baker's mom and Catherine and said, "I'm going to take care of your guy," which he did. So he, I forgot the name of the second base, the shortstop that also was a little older. Both this shortstop and Hank Aaron took Dusty under their wing. When Hank Aaron hit the Babe Ruth record-setting home run, when he surpassed Babe Ruth, who was on the on-deck circle? Dusty Baker for the against our Dodgers, no less. What was it, Al Downing? Poor guy.
Al Downing.
And, Al Downing. So that tie-in to Atlanta Braves, along with Dusty now managing the team that he has to Trashcan Gate in everyone's recent memory, I think that's going to bring a lot to the table as far as energy and all different types of storylines that people can bring to the game. I've gone on long enough about my ramp up to that. Feed us a little bit more about that, and then we'll move over to the American League. What are your thoughts on all that?
I think it's pretty incredible that Dusty is leading the Astros against the Braves. And by the way, he was actually drafted in 1967, the year you and I were born.
What did I say?
76. So,
okay. I got.
He was traded. He was traded from the Dodgers to the Braves in 76. So that's probably
76. Yeah. He was drafted in 67. That was my era. That's what I meant to say.
But yeah, he was I think he was a 19-year-old kid, and he
could have played football or basketball, which he preferred over baseball. But Hank Aaron called. What are you going to
do? Hank Aaron called, and Hank Aaron really took him under his wing. I remember Dusty once told me a story about before Game 4 of the 1977 NLCS. The Dodgers are about to go up against Steve Carlton, who was the Cy Young Award winner that year and future Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchers of all time. And the game, it was a cold and wet day. It was raining in Philadelphia that day. And Dusty Baker told me that on those kind of days, said that Hank Aaron told him, go sit in the elements for go be in the elements for an hour so that you're prepared to play in that kind of weather. So he said he sat in the dugout, he moved around and just to get used to the cold. First inning, he takes the future Hall of Famer yard for a home run, and he ended up becoming the first NLCS MVP in baseball history. They hadn't given out the award before then. So he helped knock out the Phillies that day. They clinched the NLCS.
That's awesome.
But I think this is going to be a wonderful world. I think this is going to be a great World Series. I think Dusty is the only reason that makes me lean toward the Astros, because really there is no reason for me to want to see the Astros win another championship.
Same here.
Yeah, I don't
completely on. It's a sentimental favorite.
Yeah, I mean to me. Dusty I believe he has almost 200 more wins than Tommy Lasorda as manager. He's
Right.
also the only manager in Major League history to lead 5 teams to league championships. So to division championships. So it's pretty incredible how the career that this man has had. But the one thing that's been eluding him has been winning the World Series. Got close, got to Game 7 with the Giants and the Angels in 2002. Knocked on the door going to the World Series other times, but never actually broke through. This time he's here, and I think he's got a wonderful team. I mean, just straight baseball players. He's got a really good team, and he's got a team that can really hit. And one of the big indicators for a team's greatness is the ability to not strike out. And when you put in all 30 teams in Major League Baseball, you've got the Astros have the second fewest strikeouts in Major League Baseball in the entire season. They only had 4 more than the Toronto Blue Jays. And when the year that they won the World Series in 2017, not only did they have the fewest strikeouts in Major League Baseball, they also led the majors in home runs. So that's something that just shows the greatness of that team. And they didn't lead the league in home runs, but they still were over 200 home runs. They were 221 home runs in 162 games. So I mean, just a phenomenal team, just a phenomenal team. And I hope the storylines center around Dusty, because I
do as well. That's why we're bringing him up. So I think the storylines can be pushed in so many different ways, as you and I know. Oftentimes the negative. So the negative and the Trashcan Gate and all that other stuff that's taken place over the last few years, we can't help that from getting out, but that's the whole point of us going in this direction. It's not just about Trashcan Gate. The people that were involved in all of that took place in, 2016 through 2018, I think.
17. It might have been
17.
These guys really aren't a part of this whole thing. So, I mean, I love the phrase analytics versus manalytics. I love that because baseball, even more so than football, even though football is the much bigger sport, the analytics of baseball is at the heart of fandom in baseball. People love football because there's also a visceral thing of watching the contact and the collisions. It's like gladiator type stuff. So that's just a natural thing in us. Baseball, it's all about chess moves, to the point where at the end of the season, Jorge and I will go over, do we think some of the changes that were instilled in baseball? My eyes, it's still a little jarring sometimes when I watch some of the baseball games. A certain batter comes up and 3 of the 4 infielders will be on one side or that side of second base. I'm still a little on the fence, actually leaning, not on the fence, I'm leaning more towards, play straight up. Come on, man. You guys are all, but that's just the old man, to get off my lawn part of me. So, I enjoy all that, but we'll definitely do a full analysis on that. Bring us up to date a little bit on, when I think of Correa and I think of Altuve, they stand out for Houston. And when I think of Freeman for Atlanta, he seems to be, well, now you were mentioning who was the MVP of this past series?
Yeah, Eddie Rosario.
I wanted you to bring him up because that guy, just like Acuna for the Rays last year, the young kid.
Arozarena.
Arozarena. I'm sorry, I'm so bad with names. I'm getting to be like what I used to tease my mom and dad about. What's his name? What's that boy's name? So, but I love the fact that there aren't these guys that are so much media darlings. Nothing wrong with being a media darling, but that's what I like about these guys who come out of who kind of fly underneath the radar as far as just all the hype that's out there. So they come in and they just ball out. These guys just bring it. That's the whole point of watching these games, because just as a sports fan, you just first and foremost want to see good play. No matter what, no matter who it comes from, no matter which direction it comes. Like I said, all these guys are elite athletes. People forget that sometimes in their fandom. So just on straight firepower, you're giving us some stats on Houston. Do you think that the Braves even have a chance? I mean, Houston looks almost unbeatable, and the Braves, I can't say that they look unbeatable. They looked great against the Dodgers, but there was so much emotion about we're not letting them get us again from 3-1 as they did last year. Jock Peterson with the pearls and his pearl voodoo stuff that was happening, and the simple beat LA, all these emotional tie-ins, and to me, which kind of were the foundation of the Braves having a little bit of a mental and heart advantage over the Dodgers. The Astros are just straight power. I mean, defensively, offensively, I mean, I see this going I see 4-2 Houston. What do you think?
Yeah, that would be my prediction. I think both pitching staffs are going to be kind of worn out a little bit by this point, especially the starting pitchers. And I could see a lot of bullpen games, or a lot of games won and lost in the bullpen. Both bullpens are good, not great. So the Braves both teams have very good closers. The Braves with Ryan Presley and the Braves with Ryan Presley, the Astros with the Astros with Ryan Presley, the Braves with Will Smith.
I knew where you were going.
Yeah. So those guys, but I think this is just, I mean, both teams can hit. I mean, the Astros, like I was talking about, I mean, they don't strike out. They don't strike out hardly at all. And I mean, you've got Altuve, 678 plate appearances this year, and he only struck out 91 times, hit 31 home runs. I mean, you're hitting 30 home runs without 100 strikeouts. I mean, that's amazing.
That's intense.
Carlos Correa, who had himself a really good season. Yuli Gurriel, who's also who was up for the batting title in the American League. I mean, just guys who got. But the one guy who's a breakout star was Kyle Tucker. Hit 30 bombs this year. Also, Yordan Alvarez, another guy, former Dodger minor leaguer who was a throw-in to the Astros because the Dodgers needed to protect. They thought they were protecting another guy named Alvarez. That guy at that point threw 100 miles an hour, and he just never got above A ball because he couldn't find the strike zone. But Yordan Alvarez, 33 home runs this year. I mean, this team is relentless. They're going to hit, they're going to work counts, and they're just good, and they catch the ball well. I mean, they're good defensively. You got Altuve at second base, who's a Gold Glove candidate. Correa is pretty good. Alex Bregman, who he was injured this year, missed about 70 games, so it was not the best to see. Not the best of overall numbers, but this is a guy, you got him now, and he has his legs under him. He's gonna be a guy to really watch out for, in that lineup. And but yeah, they catch the ball well. Their center fielder, I think Chas McCormick. He's really good defensively in center field. They also play again in Miles Straw out there. I mean, just a good team. Also, the Astros have the home field advantage, so and it's a dome stadium, so it gets loud, and those fans bring it for their guys. So, I would say definitely the trash can stuff is in the background. It's not, it's well forgotten. I don't think Dusty's going to stand for any of that. He's probably, I think he's the only guy who could actually lead this team now, because he is so beyond reproach when it comes to integrity, as far as the people who could have managed this team. So I love him. And the tough part is their best pitcher, Lance McCullers, is probably going to miss. He's injured, and he's probably going to miss the World Series. So that's why I say it's going to be high pitched softball. There's going to be some games where the team, it may just be, which home team has anything left in the tank at the end. The team at home, maybe they've got a little ninth inning uprising for them. But
it's what you stated earlier, though, just from the sheer firepower. Listen. When we play, I keep going back to let me be a little more objective about this. Remember the days when Shaq and Kobe they seemed unstoppable. But Portland, the Trailblazers had a little something special for them every year for like a 3-4 year run when the Lakers were on the top. They were pounding the Lakers in quite a few of those games. But sometimes when you have X type of firepower, when you have Shaq Diesel in the middle, and you have this second coming at the time of Michael Jordan, there's a switch that can be turned on in certain athletes. It sounds like that's what Houston has. So no matter what they were doing with Portland, if Shaq just put his foot down, which he did, there wasn't much the other team could do, even though, again, all elite athletes. But these guys were the elite of the elite. The firepower that I've witnessed when I've had a chance to see Houston play this year reminds me of when Shaq and Kobe would turn it on. It was one of those things, not that they were sloughing before, but again, because they're playing other pros, certain days everybody has someone can have your number. But there are times, as you're saying now, when pitching could be not as strong as it could or should be on both sides. War of attrition, end of the season, 162 plus games for all teams at this juncture. Man, those guys on Houston, every batter that comes up, it just seems nonstop. Power. I'm going to place it here. I'm going to toss it over there. I'm going to slap it over this direction. And then, again, at the top of it all, Mr. Calm and Cool manager. That's one thing I love. Toothpick, chilling. Everybody else is wigging out. He's this. So it comes from the top. And so I love his chances. Again, the old stuff got to throw out. I have to for this. I have to be as objective as I can. They just look too strong. But emotion's a hell of a thing. So that's why I keep looking for the storylines that Atlanta may have against Houston, similar to what they had against, the Dodgers. All the things I named that they had over the Dodgers. If they don't have that with Atlanta, I don't know how they can get themselves amped up to defeat Houston. What do you think?
Well, I think
the storyline seemed to be it.
The storyline seemed to be it. I mean, I hope they don't have a letdown, thinking, we just beat the mighty Dodgers, 106-win Dodgers, and and start to feel, fat and happy and feel good about themselves. If they do that, they're going to lose. They can't let up in this series. They've got to get through the starting pitchers and get to the relievers in the third or fourth inning. Try and knock out those pitchers. They've got some players who are going to play in a platoon who have really extreme splits. Jock Peterson is one of them. I mean, they might actually sit him against lefties if they see a lefty. But I mean, you look at them and it's just on the Braves side, I mean, they've got some really, really good ball players.
I like Freeman.
Freeman is great, and to me, Albies is one of the best all around players in the game. He strikes out a little more, but than
he goes for it though.
But
I like
he's great. He's one of the few players who he hit 30 home runs and stole 20 bases. So he's one of the few players who can do that. Altuve's another guy who can do that. He doesn't run as much as he used to, but he's still, quick enough to steal some bags. I mean, it's just, before we came on, I was reading a position by position breakdown, and it was, yet everything was really, really close at so many positions, and you just you look at them and you're like, all right. I mean, this could be a good series, but I do think it's going to come down to the bats and the teams that don't take themselves out of innings by striking out. And I believe the Braves struck out like about 250 more times than the Dodgers during the season. So that's 1.5 strikeouts more per game during the season. So that makes a difference. But no, I look at these guys and I'm hopeful for the Braves. I hope that their starting pitchers show up. I think both teams are going to be playing bullpen games in Game 4, which could be pretty interesting. But yeah, I think just the relentlessness of the hitters on the Astros plus home field advantage, I think, are going to be the big difference for them in this series.
So we're both wrapping it up with 4-2. Advantage Houston in this series. Houston Astros, not just because Dusty's our guy, but for all the valid reasons that Jorge has laid out over the past half hour or so. I think it's going to be interesting. It'll be fun to watch. Very interested in having further discussion on the other side of the World Series. I want baseball to come back. I think sports in general being strong is a good thing for us, right? Us meaning the country right now. I want it all to be strong. I don't want it to be divisive. I want baseball to come back in a strong way. I think it's a great game. I'm having a phenomenal time watching my son play Little League and my daughter play softball right now. It's an absolute blast. Brings me back to my childhood. I love everything about it. I love watching football. Love watching hoops. So all that's in play right now, and I even enjoy going to hockey games. Hockey's fun. Hockey's a lot of fun, man.
In person, so, I'm not big on. I don't watch it.
I agree.
No,
I agree. In person,
I'll go to a game.
Yes, I'm not as big a fan to watch it on TV. I love seeing them on Sports Center. Like the top 10 type things. It's incredible what these guys are doing. They don't give enough credit for what they do, but that's another whole conversation. So we thank you guys for sitting in with us today. As usual, Jorge was able to bring a lot of things that make me think always. I'm going to add that to my enjoyment and challenge myself over the next couple of weeks. The games begin tomorrow, Tuesday, or whenever we're releasing this episode. I'm expecting Monday night we're releasing this, but the games begin, and we hope you guys will enjoy it. We'll definitely come back on the other end of the World Series, regardless the champion. Have a much more thorough wrap-up of this past season. And what we hope to see in the CBA and with MLB moving forward, as well as, in addition to, because we want it to be something that uplifts the game. Appreciate you joining me, my man.
Oh, Clyde, muchas gracias. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, brother. Hold tight.